Okay, so in this video, we're going to be walking through how to use Google to find an endless stream of RFPs and hidden gigs. So first of all, why are we using Google in the first place? And the main reason is one word: reach. Google indexes a ton of websites, and a lot of companies post jobs directly onto their website without ever posting it on a job board. So the only way to monitor some of these are through Google. And I've noticed that very few freelancers and agencies do this. So you actually have a great opportunity to find some pretty low competition gigs this way. Secondly, there's also a ton of search parameters you can use to really hone in on freelance contracts, agency work, basically the sort of stuff that we're looking for in this course. So let's walk through what I mean by search parameters in Google. So the first search parameter is a keyword, and you are probably already pretty familiar with keywords. It's basically just words you enter into Google that Google uses to create the search. So here I'm going to enter freelance editorial designer. And that'll turn up, it looks like it's already turning up some jobs in Google, but I'm also going to make a few more tweaks. Another keyword that I like to use is RFP. That looks like it's turning up some stuff already. So you're already seeing some RFPs and a few different opportunities here. And one of the first things you'll probably notice is this RFP. It looks like it's from 2019. So what we want to do is we want to search for more recent RFPs that have been posted. So I'll go here to tools and I'll select, instead of anytime, I'll go to past month. So that's one way to limit the search to just stuff from recent times. You can also do past year or a custom range, sometimes 3 months out, if you're not seeing enough volume here to find what you're looking for. A couple more tips on the keywords side of things. Instead of freelance, you can use obviously agency if you're an agency. You can use seeking agency. You can use contract as a couple different keywords ideas for you. Basically play around with this part, with the keyword part. Say things in different ways. For example, if RFP isn't working for you, you might try request for proposal, like fully writing it out. And oftentimes these create, totally different results just by simply doing a few of those tweaks. Another tip for you is to use parentheses. If you were using editorial designer and it was bringing up a bunch of results that had the word editorial, but not editorial designer as in one phrase, you can use parentheses to make sure to force it to only find that exact phrase. Another tip here for that sort of keyword search is to try using different ways of saying your specialty. So I might try, instead of editorial designer, I might try layout designer. I might try print designer. Yeah, you'll really just kind of have to play around with it and see what kind of generates the best results. So those are a few tips for searching on Google with keywords. We're really just scratching the surface right now. I do want to walk you through a couple more search parameters before we start looking at some of these gigs. So another one of my favorite search parameters is the word site. What this will let you do is search very specific websites. So for example, job board software or different public facing sites like Google, and I'll walk through a couple different ones here that you might be interested in as well. So one, for example, might be jobs.lever.co. So if you search that, you'll see that lever.co is a job board software that thousands of companies use to post their jobs. And so you can actually search their database of jobs by using this asterisk here at the end. That's telling Google to search any URL that starts with this. And you can just do freelance just as an example here. You can see there's tons of different job postings that aren't really very public. And you might have to try add the word remote just to kind of make sure that this is open to remote work. A couple more websites like this that you should probably check out is Workable. It's another popular job board software. And for Workable, you actually have to put the asterisk at the beginning because some websites URLs do things a little bit differently. For example, breezy.hr, they create a specific subdomain for each client. So in order to search their database, you have to put the asterisk at the beginning. So this is just kind of touching on some of the potential here for finding these jobs which you basically can't find any other way. And because of that, really makes it high quality opportunity, low competition. So something else you can do here is add the word or and actually combine these different search parameters using the different sites. So then you can add or site asterisk workable. You can do another or to add the lever.co URL and actually search all of these databases all in one go. So that brings up everything on all of these websites with Freelance Designer in it. Okay, so a couple more sites that I wanted to quickly walk through that I thought might be helpful for you. Another one is Google Docs. So you do site docs.google.com. And a lot of people, I've noticed, they upload their PDFs to Google Drive. And so if it's public, you can actually search through their PDFs. And so you can do RFP again. And sometimes that pulls up RFPs people have posted directly in their Google Docs. So you can see we're starting to scratch the surface of how powerful Google really is in hiring. A couple more here I'm going to go through real quick. Hire.withgoogle.com is another one. And you can see there's a ton of different job posts that have been posted through Google. Google has their own job board software, this is kind of the URL. I'm going to post a PDF for you below this with all the different search parameters that I've mentioned in this video, plus a ton more. And yeah, it's really up to you about how creative you want to get with the search parameters. Docs.google.com/forms. If you've ever used Google Forms, a lot of people use it as a way to kind of get freelance applications. You can search through those as well, and actually end up finding public Google Forms where people are kind of looking for applications, freelancer applications using Google Forms as well. Again, this is really the only way to monitor these gigs. These aren't posted publicly or on job boards, so you're really just searching people's personal websites, their own databases, which is awesome because there's just a ton of volume here and you can find a ton of leads, high quality leads pretty quickly. Okay, so a couple more search parameters that are actually I use quite often, and this one's for RFPs in particular. You can search by file type. So if you do the word type :PDF, and you do RFP editorial design for this example, it will actually bring up PDFs that Google has found related to that search. So here's one, for example. It looks like they're looking for somebody for graphic design production, request for proposal. And what's really great about the PDF is it just takes you directly to the document that kind of has the email address, the deadlines to respond. Everything you need is kind of all in one place. And so it's a great source for RFPs in particular. If you're running an agency, this is definitely a good place to go for RFPs. A good percentage of the RFPs I find personally come through Google directly. Another tip for you, if you were running into a problem, like if you had a search and maybe, for example, Upwork kept coming up and you weren't really interested in working with Upwork, there's an exclude search parameter you can use. It's the minus symbol, and then you just do upwork.com, and that'll remove any Upwork related post from this. If for example, if you were getting a lot of websites that were like RFP database and stuff like that, you can also do rfpdb.com. That'll remove that as well. Yeah, sometimes you can run into some annoying websites that are like just stuffing keywords and they're not actual proposals or they're not actual job postings. So that's a good tip to remove those. Secondly, and lastly, the other search parameter that I did want to mention was in URL. This actually searches through the URL. So if they have seeking freelancer, for example, in the URL of the post, this is a good way to find those sites. So let's go back and actually do a search. So RFP editorial design, PDF. Let's try that for now. And I'm going to give you a few tips for searching through Google. After you do this a few times, you'll get good at kind of tuning out the stuff that's not really relevant. What I like to do is a similar technique to what I walked through in the Feedbin tutorial, which is use command and click. That way I can just click on everything that's interesting kind of all at once and go through it as fast as I can and just have it kind of opening up in the background. And that way I'm not wasting a bunch of time going back and forth with it. And so once I have a few that I'm interested in, I can go in and Command W will close the tab, and I can look through and individually look at each RFP. So this one actually looks like a pretty good one. I like it when they are kind of basically talking, using paragraphs and using clear communication in the RFP. I think that's a good sign for an easier process for hiring. Another tip for you is to use Command F. You can actually search through PDFs this way as well. I wasn't aware of that at first, but just like other websites, you can search through and you can look for deadline quickly and make sure that it's still an open RFP. I've noticed that oftentimes I have to double check the date because it's while it might seem that they're actually closed already, when I go to the website, it looks like RFPs have been amended and reposted, and yet they sometimes don't update the actual RFP. So if you see an RFP that's been uploaded recently, but it looks like it has an older due date, you might want to double check that as well. There might be a new due date that has been assigned. So like, let's say I was going to keep this one. I would just go on to the next one. This looks like it's not really related to an RFP. This is at 404. Here's a designer, production artist needed, RFP, long-term contractor. So this would be another interesting one. Yeah, and I would just kind of go through it like this. Sometimes, like this last one, I just didn't like the look of it. It looks like it's going to be really long and boring, so I just exit out of it right away. This one also looks pretty long, so I'll usually just kind of exit out of them if they're too long for me. So this is the Harvard website redesign, which would probably be interesting. Yeah, as you're probably noticing, Google RFPs can really turn up a lot of governmental and kind of nonprofit and even school-related projects. If that's not really your thing, I totally get that. You might want to tweak your search a little bit to make sure you're looking for private companies or startups. You can get creative with that using the right terms. You can probably filter a lot of the governmental or nonprofit sort of stuff out. The reason that these are more popular on Google when you're searching through RFPs is just that these are the types of organizations that usually post RFPs in general more often. Another note is sometimes an RFP will have a Q&A session. Questions due. I strongly recommend you submit questions if you're planning to submit an RFP. Oftentimes I find that people who kind of build the relationship by asking questions are the ones who end up winning these RFPs. There's also going to be usually posted addendums or the actual Q&As documents. They'll post them on the site too. So sometimes when you're doing your Google search, you'll run into this Q&A document which has answers to questions other vendors have asked. And those are actually sometimes a good way to find the RFPs. So you would go back to the website and look for the actual original RFP based on if the Q&A document that you find is interesting and it's still open, then that might be another good way to find RFPs. We're going to get into some more tips about landing RFPs in the maximizing your response rate video, but for now, those are a couple tips I have for you. Definitely respond to the Q&A portion of the RFP process. Example of what an addendum RFP to the RFP looks like. Vendors have asked questions. They kind of answered them, and these oftentimes give you a lot of background on like why they're looking to do to do the project in the first place, what problems they're facing, what they've tried to solve it in the past. So other people can ask really good questions, and oftentimes it's just as helpful as the RFP for putting together your proposal. So definitely recommend you check those out. Another couple notes about Google in general is I don't really recommend Google Alerts. I don't know if you've seen Google Alerts. To me, they've never really turned up anything. In case you're curious about Google Alerts, I've supposedly as you can see here, I have a ton of different alerts set up. I never get any emails for them. It's not really worth it. And also, Google doesn't really search Craigslist, and there's other websites like this which you can't really search through for some reason. I've tried before, and doesn't seem to turn up individual job postings. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So in general, in terms of searching Google, you can go, it's pretty endless the amount of client streams that you can find here. It really depends on your niche and how creative you get with kind of the search parameters that you use. If you find a really great niche website that has a lot of jobs posted, make sure to incorporate that into your Google searches. I would do it something like once a week, a couple times a week even. That's probably a good idea. Again, using kind of the past month, past week, past year parameters to really look for stuff that's been posted recently is kind of the key here, along with the other search parameters that I mentioned, like PDFs and the different websites, that job board websites, and different places that post kind of freelance contracts that aren't really widely known about. I think by getting kind of creative with some of your searches, this is a really good source for jobs that are kind of low competition and not getting hit up by hundreds of different freelancers. It's maybe just a handful of people who happen to respond to it. So for example, if there's a company that you really like, you might go to their website and find their jobs page and kind of figure out what the URL is for it, where they're going to be posting new jobs. And that way you can add it to your Google searches and kind of keep track of it there. So you can do site and add it there. So that's just another tip there. And you can kind of build a set of different searches that you kind of refer back to regularly. Keep it in a doc or in a project management app and kind of just review it once a week or once a month.